Now that we've got the basics with the connectives down, we need to look at complex sentences, which are compound sentences that include more than one truth functional connective. In this video, I'm going to walk you through a series of examples to explain the process. Any symbolized sentence involving at least one connective is called a compound sentence. Every compound sentence has what is called the main connective, which is the connective that takes everything else in the sentence as its component part or parts. And that's what makes the sentence what it is. So a sentence with a conjunction as the main connective is a conjunction primarily as a sentence. With all of the sentences we looked at in the last video, there was just one connective. So it was obviously the main one. With complex sentences, we have to be more careful to identify the main connective, so we symbolize the sentence appropriately. Here's a fairly simple complex sentence. Sugar either is or is not a dog. We've got both or and not in the natural English sentence, so we know we're going to be working with both a disjunction and a negation. Here's the truth functional paraphrase with the connectives underlined. Sugar is a dog, or it is not the case that sugar is a dog, right? So two connectives. So now we need to look at which of these two connectives is the main connective. We can tell in the paraphrase that the negation only modifies the second occurrence of sugar is a dog. The or connects both of these two expressions. So we know that this disjunction is going to be our main connective, the or is. So this sentence overall is a disjunction. When we symbolize this, we have S for sugar is a dog on our left disjunct, and tilde S for it is not the case that sugar is a dog on our right disjunct. Now, technically, this sentence looks like this on the bottom. The whole tilde S is the right disjunct. But because negation is a unary connective, there's no confusion if we drop those parentheses on the outside of a sentence in which the main connective is a negation. So you'll see the textbook and me and any instructional stuff dropping that. It's just an accepted practice in logic to drop those parentheses when the main connective of the sentence here, right, this side sentence, is that negation. So now let's take our second example. Cupcake is fluffy and Cupcake is either a dog or a cat. We can see from the natural English that this sentence involves both a conjunction and a disjunction. Let's start our truth functional paraphrase. As you can see, I've broken up the second part of the expression, Cupcake is either a dog or a cat, into complete sentences, right, separated by the or. You always have to do that. And now we need to identify whether the conjunction or the disjunction is our main connective. So we need to look back at the natural English to make sure we preserve the meaning correctly. If we say that or is the main connective, then this sentence would mean Cupcake is a dog and Cupcake is fluffy, or Cupcake is a cat. So Cupcake is a fluffy dog or Cupcake is a cat, which clearly isn't the same meaning as the original sentence. So by the process of elimination, we know that this conjunction here, this and, is our main connective, and it has the conjuncts Cupcake is fluffy as one conjunct, and then that entire other side of the sentence, Cupcake is a dog or Cupcake is a cat, as that second conjunct. The way that we show that the conjunction is the main connective and that whole disjunct on the right is one of the conjuncts is by putting the second part in parentheses. When you're doing your own problems, I do recommend you include the parentheses in your paraphrases because it'll help keep you from making mistakes when you're symbolizing if you forget to put them in your symbolization. So I do recommend you put them in your paraphrase when working on your own. So now that our paraphrase is complete, here's the symbolization. F is the atomic sentence for Cupcake is fluffy, and then we have the ampersand for this conjunction here. On the right half, we have in the parentheses, D for Cupcake is a dog, the V for the disjunction, and C for Cupcake is a cat. And these parentheses let us know that this whole compound sentence is the conjunct for this conjunction here, where the other conjunct is just that F. For every binary connective, it must connect two complete sentences together, either an atomic sentence like we have here on the left, or a compound sentence in parentheses like you see here on the right. So here's another example. It's cold outside, given it is December or January. We know that given is a natural English expression that we could interpret as if, right? So that's how we're going to interpret this. So the part of the sentence that follows the if it is December or January is going to be our antecedent in the material conditional. So it's going to come first in our paraphrase, which is if it is December or it is January, of course, making sure we have complete sentences, then it is cold outside. With the paraphrase now, it's pretty obvious that this material conditional is our main connective, because the disjunction is inside of that antecedent before the then. So now we need to add parentheses that will preserve the meaning in that symbolization. So to make it clear that that whole disjunction, it is December or it is January, and is the antecedent, we put that compound sentence in parentheses like this. And now we can finish our symbolization. So now we have in parentheses, it is December, it is January. So D, that V for the disjunction J, and then horseshoe C for it is cold outside. So this next example is a little bit different. In our natural English expression, we've only got one connective, and that's the or. So we have to separate these out into separate sentences with our truth functional paraphrase to see how many connectives we're actually going to have. So now we have that split into separate sentences. Jane will get the promotion, or Sarah will get the promotion, or Kate will get the promotion. And unlike our previous examples, there's no meaning in the original sentence that tells us which one of these ors is more important, right? The original sentence only has one, and we can't find anything in the meaning to tell us one or the other is a main connective. So you might be tempted to symbolize the sentence like this. But remember, in sentential logic, each binary connective must have two complete sentences as its components. Here it looks like both disjuncts make an equal claim to the atomic sentence S in the middle, which doesn't work. So what we need to do is we need to pick one of the disjunctions as the main connective and put the other side in parentheses. And here it doesn't matter which one we choose. So correct symbolization of this natural English sentence could look like this, in which we have J or S as a disjunct for the second disjunction, for that second V as the main connective. Or you could do it like this, with the first V for that disjunction as the main connective, and then S or K as that second disjunct. As long as you've got all conjuncts or all conjunctions or all disjunctions, it doesn't matter which way you use the parentheses, but it's crucial that you do use them to make sure the sentence is grammatically correct in logic. So here's a similar problem. Kant, Hume, Locke, and Berkley are all philosophers. We paraphrase this with the complete sentences that each of them is a philosopher, with ands in between them. So now we've got 4 atomic sentences and 3 conjunctions. Just like the last problem, there's no reason we need to make any one of these conjunctions the main connective, so you might try to symbolize it like this. But just like before, this is not a grammatic sentence in sentential logic. Each sentence can be modified or joined by only one connective, and each connective needs 2 complete sentences as component parts. So the most intuitive way to add parentheses here looks like this. The main connective is a conjunction, and each of those 2 conjunctions are compound sentences that are themselves conjunctions, right? And in this way, we have each of these atomic sentences only modified by one connective, and then each connective has 2 component parts on each side. And then this conjunction has, as its conjunct, this whole sentence and this whole sentence. So each of those are only modified once as well. Of course, that's not the only way you could correctly symbolize this sentence. You could do it in a bunch of different arrangements. You could do something like this. Each conjunction still only has two conjuncts, right? K, this one has K and then this whole big sentence. This one has H and then the L and B sentence. And then this one has L and B. So that still works, though it's a little less clear. So one trick to make sure you've done your parentheses correctly is to count the opening parentheses and the closing parentheses, and you should always have the same number of each. Right? So in both of these, we have two opening parentheses. In the top one, they're here and here, and then on the bottom one, they're here and here, and two closing parentheses. So here we have one on this side and one on this side, and here they're both here at the end. So that's just another example of when you're dealing with multiple conjunctions or multiple disjunctions, that you really do need to put parentheses in, even if it doesn't actually matter in particular where you put them to do it correctly. So now let's look at another example involving negation. And this one is either Bill or Ted won't graduate. And there are two different ways to symbolize this type of sentence where what we're saying is it's not the case that both of them will graduate. And the first way is to take it like that. It's not the case that both Bill and Ted will graduate, which we take as it's not the case that Bill will graduate and Ted will graduate. So now instead of a negation and a disjunction, like we have in the original sentence where we have an or and a won't, we're going to use a negation and a conjunction. In this case, the negation is modifying the entire rest of the sentence, so that is our main connective. And now we add our parentheses to show that the negation is modifying that whole conjunction. And with the paraphrase complete, we can just add on that symbolization fairly easily. Now let's look at the other way to paraphrase the natural English, either Bill or Ted won't graduate, that maintains that disjunction all the way through. So the way that we can take that is, it is not the case that Bill will graduate, or it is not the case that Ted will graduate. So now we have two negations and one disjunction. Here, each negation only modifies the atomic sentence right next to it, and the disjunction takes both negated sentences, right? Both whole negated sentences as its disjuncts. So we can symbolize it like this. It's not the case that B, or it is not the case that T. As I mentioned earlier in our first example in this video, it's accepted practice to drop parentheses outside of a negation. But if you're confused or unsure of when to drop them, you won't be penalized for including them like this, right? So this makes it even more clear that the disjuncts include those negations, but it's an accepted practice to drop them. So whichever way is most comfortable for you to do, you can do it like that. But when you see us do problems in class, we'll have them with that practice of dropping parentheses outside of sentences where the main connective is a negation. Now, so both of these ways of interpreting and symbolizing this natural English sentence are correct and acceptable. It's not the case that B and T is logically equivalent to it's not the case that B, or it's not the case that T. I recommend you just stick with whichever of these two make the most sense to you for your own work, and try not to mix them together because other things wouldn't be correct. Both of these are correct, though. So the last example for today is the exclusive sense of or that I mentioned in previous videos. So the example is a parent telling their child that they can have a cookie or ice cream for dessert. There is an implicit but not both attached to the offer of either or. In this class, but not both will never be implicit. You should always read or statements as inclusive unless you see but not both written there. So here we have the problem with it written out explicitly. You can have a cookie or ice cream, but not both. And the paraphrase is going to look like this. You can have a cookie or you can have ice cream, and it is not the case that you can have a cookie and you can have ice cream. And now we need to identify that main connective. Looking back at the original sentence, you can have a cookie or ice cream, but not both. That but is the pivotal connective between the sentence, you can have a cookie or ice cream, and the sentence, you can't have both. So we are going to make that and the main connective in the truth functional paraphrase. So now we need to add parentheses to our paraphrase to make sure we capture the correct meaning when we symbolize. The right side is pretty straightforward. The whole disjunction, you can have a cookie or you can have ice cream, is one of the conjuncts. So we'll go ahead and put those parentheses in. Now let's look at the left side. You need to decide whether our parentheses should go around the whole sentence to the right of the and, or if we should put them somewhere else. So if we put those parentheses around the whole left side of the and, then that half of the sentence would read, it's not the case that you can have a cookie and you can have ice cream, in which the negation only modifies you can have a cookie. So it's saying you can't have a cookie and you can have ice cream. And clearly that's not what the original sentence meant by not both. So instead, we need to make sure the negation modifies the whole compound sentence, you can have a cookie or you can have ice cream, to preserve that meaning. And to do that, we put our parentheses here. So we have you can have a cookie and you can have ice cream in parentheses, which we then symbolize like this, right? So this is similar to how we did on the last problem. You can have a cookie or you can have ice cream inside parentheses here, and then the and, then our negation and, but you can't have a cookie and you can't have ice cream both at the same time. So this is how you're going to symbolize but not both statements overall. If you ever see a statement that says either this or that but not both, the symbolization is going to look roughly like this. So hopefully working through all of these examples has been helpful for you, but if you need more explanation or instruction, the textbook and the course manual also have good explanations of how to work through paraphrasing and symbolizing complex sentences. Once you feel like you understand somewhat, try working through these practice problems in the textbook and then check your solutions. And as always, please reach out if you would like help and bring questions to class if you have them.